Okay, now going to we're now back in open session, and we're now going to the proposed delivery of former Employability Fund provision in East Ayrshire from April 22. Joe? David? So you even tell me before the meeting, I'm just... Sorry.
That's age for you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update members on the current position with the rollout of the delivery of the Employability Fund programme across East Ayrshire and seek Cabinet approval for economic development and education, together with colleagues in procurement and partners in the local employability partnership, to enter into a negotiated contract arrangement with key providers. This proposal seeks to ensure continuity of service delivery post-March 2022, when Scottish Government resources for this programme will be directed to the local employability partnerships. As members are aware, employability is a central theme for the East Ayrshire Community Planning Partnership, and following the transition of the impending removal of EU funding, economic downturn during and post-COVID, and the additional support from the Scottish Government through the No One Left Behind programme, this has led to our joint partnership arrangements between education and employability staff, which focus provision on the need of the individual, ensuring that they have the appropriate support to help them improve their life chances. The Scottish Government has been clear that No One Left Behind must be delivered through integration and alignment of a variety of local and national supports and services, and that locally it must be directed by the local employability partnership. Within East Ayrshire, the local employability partnership meets regularly and is committed to providing the leadership and oversight required to ensure an all-age provision in East Ayrshire meets the needs of residents and is both comprehensive and accessible. This approach will be particularly important from April 2022 onwards, when the local employability partnership will align activities and interventions most suited to the needs of our communities. Paragraph 7013 confirms the arrangements for the Employability Fund programme post-March 2022, and as an update, the local employability partnership is currently working on a delivery plan for the 3-year period from 2022 to 2025, which will set out the ambitions of all partners in terms of employability support across East Ayrshire, and this plan will be presented to the Community Planning Partnership for approval. In the interim, however, there is an immediate need to address the continued delivery of employability support package through the Employability Fund programme. This programme is funded by the Scottish Government and is managed on its behalf by Skills Development Scotland, who in turn commission local contract providers. The programme is designed to help unemployed residents develop the skills and confidence employers are looking for, and is important and it's a stepping stone for many of our residents in their ambitions to access the labour market. Without this programme, many young people leaving full-time education would be without opportunity and would not be able to assess the tailored support they require. Paragraph 9 confirms the performance delivered this financial year by the 7 training providers. The current Employability Fund contracts are due to end in March 2022, and while Scottish Government had intended to have a national procurement framework in place for a dynamic purchasing system from which any local authority could appoint contractors, this has been subject to extensive delays and is unlikely to be in full operation until 2023. Therefore, in discussions with colleagues in procurement, it is apparent that the procurement of new programme providers by East Ayrshire Local Employability Partnership would take several months to put in place, and alternatives could be in conflict with East Ayrshire Council's existing contractual conditions. Taking account of these issues, approval is therefore sought to enter into a negotiated contract process with the existing providers, which is noted in paragraph 12. Although a degree of flexibility may be required to ensure continuity of service provision, in order to maintain consistency across the strategic skills pipeline, contracted activity will be based initially on allocated starts from 2021 to 2022. This approach will reduce the time required to ensure that provision is still available to clients, and will also ensure that local providers have certainty about future business activity and their staff will have continuity of employment. This approach will allow both East Ayrshire Council and the local employability partnership partners to ensure that delivery remains fit for purpose and is flexible to the needs of the local clients. In an effort to address any further delays in the Scottish Government's procurement arrangements, it is also proposed that any negotiated contract is put in place for 2 years, with the option to extend for a further year in line with the duration of the Local Employability Partnership Delivery Plan. In terms of financial funding for the total cost of meeting these proposals, Scottish Government grants will fund the programme with the 2021-2022 underspends and 22-2023 funding allocation, along with a Scottish Government Memorandum of Understanding considered by COSLA leaders at their meeting on the 25th of February. Therefore, this report has no financial implications for the Council. Similarly, there are no HR or legal implications, and the risk implications identified are mitigated through the proposal set out in this paper. Chair, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. Quite a good positive paper in terms of training and job opportunities. Members, any questions? Tom?
Thanks, Leader. No, I mean, I welcome this paper, and obviously we've touched on earlier today employability being, the way forward, and we need to focus on it. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm just a question around the financial implications. If we haven't negotiated the contracts yet, how do we know we're going to get enough money from the Scottish Government to fund it, or are they giving us almost an open cheque to say, we will fund whatever your contracts come up with?
Through you, Chair, the existing contracts obviously are in place, and we're aware what those are. So there's then a memorandum of understanding that will be completed, and that'll take allowances for future spend.
Okay, so there will definitely be no financial implications for the Council in delivering this.
No, that's correct.
That's my understanding as well, but we'll get clarity now after the leaders meeting at the end of the month, and we'll give you any information that we get for that.
Through you, Chair, you'll understand this report, it follows up a report in December, and there has been a lot of uncertainty. So when we do have all the pieces of the jigsaw, we'll be coming back. I mentioned in my overview there that we'll be coming to Community Planning Partnership, but we will be setting out what the actual final arrangements are in due course.
Thanks, David. Anyone else? Okay, can we agree with the recommendations? Okay. The next one's the School Estate Management Plan. Is Andrew? Aileen, sorry, Aileen. I'm getting them all right this morning. Aileen.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Good to be with you this morning. So the purpose of the report is to outline the 2020-2021 School Estate Management Plan as part of the Asset Management Framework and seek Cabinet approval for its submission to the Scottish Government. Just as per paragraph 2, just wanted to reiterate that the content of this report is retrospective, so it's covering the period from August 2020 until around about July 2021, really the summer of 2021. As you know, this is an annual update, provides a position statement, the school estate, and will inform discussions on our future plans, along with many other reports that are going to come together in terms of determining where we go next. I hope you will agree that it's an extremely positive report, showing ongoing improvements across the school estate, and that is as a result of the Council's ongoing investment. So in terms of progress over the year, Barony Campus and Lonehead Primary School and Early Childhood Centre opened, albeit slightly delayed by the pandemic. Hopefully, members, you've had the opportunity to visit these schools, and if not, I'm sure you have seen lots of posts on social media in terms of how well the young people are enjoying these spaces. Crosshouse Primary School and Communications Centre and Netherford Primary School started on site last week, and last year, and both of these projects are due to be handed over later this year. Enerfit Designs commenced on the St Sophia's Primary School project, and this is planned for handover in 2023. Significant programme of consultation involving all stakeholders in the Doon Valley community was undertaken by the design team over last summer. So that was the kind of main highlights of the year. Appendices 1, 2 and 3 that are attached to the report provide the detail on school capacities, condition and suitability. So to summarise, first of all, in terms of capacity, we have 7 schools that have occupancy levels over 90%. In the primary sector, we have Annan Hill Primary School, and you'll know that there was agreement last year to locate 2 modular classrooms on the campus, and those of you that have been around the Grange estate would see that these are now in position, and the kids are moving into them if they haven't already moved in them today. So today, the first day back, the school children are back today. Darville Primary School has been above 90% for a good few years, but we're seeing a very slow, steady decline in the school roll there. Not dramatic, just small numbers every year that are taking it very much closer to 90%. Laneshaw Primary School, as per Annan Hill, plans were agreed last year to put in place 2 modular classrooms, and they are already located on the school site and are being used. You will note that Ayrshire and Netherthird have been noted separately within the report, but that was because, again, at the time when Loch Norris merged, at the time of the school census, Loch Norris hadn't merged the 2 schools. So what will happen next year is you'll see that they will have merged. So we're just discounting Ayrshire and Netherthird for the time, Ayrshire and Greenmill, sorry, for the time being. Getting all confused with my schools here. There's so much going on up in the Cumnock area. In the secondary sector, the main challenge that we have is really around Grange Academy, and that has been well rehearsed, and we've talked about this in the past. It's already been acknowledged, and following subsequent agreement by Cabinet, the campus will be a focus of future consideration and plans. Stuart Academy has plans for an extension. These have chopped and changed a bit over the years with the changes of head teacher, but a new design is now well advanced and almost ready for sign-off. So that's in terms of capacity. One thing that I did want to highlight, that although there is no agreed formula in place to determine school capacities in the ASN, we have acknowledged that the numbers in the ASN sector are increasing, and I know that Linda has that in hand. So we'll leave that just really as reference to the fact that we know that within the ASN sector that we have to do something about where we're going in the future with the school estate. If we move on to condition, investment is continuing in line with the asset management framework and the property management plan. I think we should be really, really pleased to note that all of our schools are now either rated condition A or B, while still being mindful of the fact that there may be individual elements within some of our schools graded C or D, and these will be the focus of future investment. But I think that's a very, very positive that we have to take from this report. In terms of suitability, there are 8 schools where the head teachers have graded suitability as C, and all of these schools have plans in place for improvement. And I think, as we've mentioned before, the rollout of the property pledge has seen significant programmes of upgrading across the school estate. In addition, end-of-year balances have been made available to us, and we've used that to purchase some new furniture for the schools. Feedback on the property pledge has been excellent, and I think I would just highlight again that we should not underestimate the positive impact of painting classrooms, new flooring, new blinds, and even just a small number of pieces of new furniture on the morale of our pupils and staff. And we know that from the feedback that we're getting from them. So going forward, there remains further ambition to continue to improve all aspects of the school estate, to to meet 21st century learning and teaching needs of our children and young people, to ensure our schools provide opportunities for place-based working, and you've heard a lot about that from Linda this morning, about how that's a real focus for our school buildings, to ensure there's a focus on sustainability and reducing the council's carbon footprint, and to ensure that we're sector leading in the delivery of digitally enabled establishments. And again, Linda made reference to that in her service redesign this morning. To match the council's aspirations of net zero will require a major shift in energy sources, fabric of the building, as well as behavioural changes right across the school estate, and will continue to seek funding sources to finance our aspirations of net zero. Cabinet has previously agreed that Kilmarnock North West and Laneshaw Primary School in Stewarton should be the focus for the next application for funding through the Scottish Government's Learning Estate Investment Programme. We're expecting that we'll hear more about the details, again, as was mentioned earlier, sometime before the summer, with bids expected somewhere towards the end of this year. In terms of the two projects that have been identified, both will have place-based approaches at their core. Discussions between colleagues in education, facilities and property management and planning in terms of what the bid might look like for these two areas are well advanced and will be shared with members as soon as possible. And again, as Linda highlighted, that collaborative working has been a real positive of COVID, and it's something that we'll take forward as really good, as best practice. In terms of the local development plan, proposals within LDP2 have already been discussed as part of our potential bid process. But again, once LDP2 has been agreed by Cabinet, the proposals will be woven into our Learning Estate Investment Programme bids. So moving on to the recommendations, we're asking Cabinet to continue to support the vision and priorities for the school estate and the collaborative work between colleagues in education, facilities and property management and planning to determine future priorities for the school estate, to continue to support the programmes of improvement through the property management plan and the property pledge to maximise the value of an investment in our facilities, to continue to support the next round of bids to the Learning Estate Investment Programme Fund for Kilmarnock North West and Laneshaw Primary School in Stewarton, and agree to the 2020-21 School Estate Management Plan being submitted to the Scottish Government, and otherwise note the contents of the report. Thank you, Chair, and happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thanks, Aileen. Just a bit of an echo there. Sorry. There's a bit of an echo. I'll try my best to continue it. Just in terms of there's 2-3 points I was going to make myself. Just in terms of Kilmarnock North West, I think looking forward to hearing what some of the detail in that. But I think we don't want to set hairs around it. We're going to be providing a new school, but there's a number of issues that need to be addressed, particularly the other side of the LDB2, in terms of what the needs are for South Craigs. Absolute needs for Knock-in-Law and Hillhead, the south of the northwest, for want of a better word. And indeed, I think different communities there, always different kind of needs in terms of new sustainable educational facilities where we can. So I think we need to just kind of, draw that out a wee bit, as soon as we can. I think that's really important. Just in terms of the particularly good news, you mentioned about visiting Lonehead. It's not for the want of trying, because some of the other local members are quite keen to see inside it, but I think COVID has prevented a visit, and we maybe do a visit as soon as restrictions allow us to allow Cabinet, because the photographs and etc. look good. But just with that, can I maybe, I don't know if Andrew or Aileen have can I mention the word trees, and maybe is there any sign of them coming as well? And maybe the other things worth a visit is the the two new, where we put the two new modular classrooms in Laneshaw and Annan Hill, might be worth having a look at how successful they are. Maybe, you know, invite local members, cabinet members to have a look at that. Because I think we need to just see if they're satisfactory. Apart from that, Liz there, and I understand this. You know, this is some of this has previously been done, but there's loads of excitement right across the authority, and we're looking forward to seeing some of their work in St Sophia's, Nerthard and Dunlop. I think Tom and Councillor Campbell and Lillian were out there last week, and it's really impressive, even standing outside it, just the difference that school investments made to the village. So it's great to see. So loads of great things going on right across East Ayrshire. I'm really proud to have that kind of programme. And, you know, just the fact that we're now reached that there's only A's and B's, you know, when you go back a few years ago, to have achieved that is a remarkable achievement. And, you know, there can't be many authorities across Scotland have been able to do that. So that's well done there. Okay, I'll let a number of folk in. Andrew, you want to come in first?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was maybe just to pick up a couple of the points that you raised there. So, I mean, obviously, in terms of what Aileen set out there in terms of the learning estate bid, we're still waiting to get the final details of what the criteria will be and whether it will be the same as what we bid for in terms of Doon campus. Clearly, North West and West Kilmarnock will feature within the local development plan too. And again, as Aileen says, once that has come through the formal approval, then that will start to inform the more detailed work that we would be doing. Clearly, there will need to be further engagement and consultation around a range of options and proposals that would come as part of this next phase, and that is will be the format and the approach that will be taken over the coming months as we move forward with those projects. I think it's clearly, you've said there, I think that the school estate management plan is something we've had in place since 2009, so it has delivered over that 10-year period the change in terms of improving the efficiency and matching the condition and suitability of our schools to the aspirations of the young people. And clearly what Linda's set out in terms of her service review, then that kind of moving forward and making sure those things align is absolutely the direction of travel that we're making sure that things are joined up. So clearly how education develops will also inform then in terms of the school estate shape for the coming years. Obviously, the other points that you made there, just in terms of some of the good progress, the one that you did pick up on there was obviously the trees at Lone Head. Then we are just finalising the details with outdoor amenities and the availability of trees, and I would anticipate that the new trees will be in before the end of March, basically in terms of the growing season. And obviously we'll just finalising details with the contractor to kind of resolve that issue. So I hope that covers all of the points that you'd raised.
No, that's good. Good to hear that they'll win just before spring, the trees. But I mean, that's just a minor point. But I mean, the point you make about the whole estate, I mean, that's been really great to see. Number 4, want to come in? I've got Fiona first, then I'm front row here.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Aileen, for that report. It's a very positive report, very encouraging indeed. No, I was just going to reiterate what Dougie was saying, that the wee visit we had to Crosshouse Primary Communication Centre Extension on Friday. I was really impressed. I didn't expect it to be as big as it is. So the director of Fleming, I don't know if they're called Fleming Construction, he was on hand and was telling Councillor Cook about the cladding, etc. So I think he said it's going to be opened in the summer, which is really good going. So I was very encouraged, and it was freezing, mind you, but it was good to be there. Thanks.
Thanks, Fiona. Tom?
Thanks, Okay, no, just a really good report, and I'm pleased that we've now got everything up to A's and B's. I mean, I think that's a real progress. As a local member, obviously, I welcome the new classrooms at Annan Hill Primary School. I know both the children and the teachers themselves are quite excited about getting in there today and making use of the new space and taking some of the pressure off within other parts of the school. So I'm pleased that that's happened. I know we've got bigger issues around Stuarton Academy and the Grange campus, just in terms of capacity as we go forward, and that's being looked at. But I suppose the two concerns I've got are to read that, and both Robert Burns Academy and Kilmarnock Academy are now over 90%. I mean, I know we're trying to get the occupancy of our schools up to keep them high, but I'm just concerned that so quickly we've got to 90% and excess of 90% in 2 new schools. I'm just hoping we've got the calculations right in terms of the capacity of these schools, and have taken into account future proofing them as new houses are building, particularly down, I think, in the Cumnock area. There's a lot of building going on down in that area, and I think we need to make sure that particularly as we go forward, that we actually do get the size of accommodation right and the calculations right. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Chair, can I come back?
Yeah, Aileen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Cook. It was good of you to mention that. I think we had maybe mentioned last year in terms of the capacity around our secondary schools and how it's calculated. But I suppose for Robert Burns Academy and for Kilmarnock Academy, they're completely different designs. So there's kind of 2 issues at play here. Number one is in terms of how they've been designed for their flexible spaces. So they have much more in the way of breakout areas, flexible spaces that are not actually counted within the calculations that classes can go out and use. So I know, for example, at Robert Burns Academy, the area where the Science Plaza is located, I know the Duke of Edinburgh group used that at the same time as the Advanced Higher, one of the science groups used that area at the same time. So there's lots more in these 2 schools in terms of flexible areas. They're not actually counted. But actually, when you go back to thinking about how capacity is calculated in secondary, it's much more complicated. So if we were to take, so what we would start with our secondary school is basically assuming that every classroom that has desks and chairs is full, 100% full. That gives us a working capacity there for that. But then what we have to do is use some sort of formula to reduce that number. Otherwise, we would not be able to deliver a curriculum. So some years what you might have is that there might be more young people in the senior phase that choose to do 2 sciences, and in another year it might be 2 languages. So our accommodation has to be much more flexible. So what is actually used at the moment is an old Strathclyde formula, which basically takes the number of children or young people that you can have in the school, and then you take 75% of that and then take away 150. It's a very arbitrary figure that I think every council across Scotland has agreed doesn't really work in terms of providing the number of usable spaces. And in fact, 2 or 3 of our nearby local authorities are now not using that formula. They're just using their own figure, and what they're doing is they're taking the number of children and young people that can be in the classes and taking 80% of that to allow for flexibility within the curriculum, but also taking cognizance of the fact that there's more flexible areas. So if we were to do the same, and if that's maybe a decision that we maybe want to think about, discuss and bring forward to Cabinet, if we want to change that and use what one of our local authorities was using, the number of usable spaces in our schools would be much higher, which would mean that our capacity or our occupancy would be lower than 90%. I hope that makes sense in terms of how I explained it. I don't know, Andrew, if you can think of something that's simpler and easier, but I think what we're recognising is that with the number of flexible spaces that we have, there is far more capacity than what we're actually calculating just now with the formula that we're using. I don't know if that makes sense, Councillor Cook.
Well, thanks, Aileen. It makes some sense, but the formula seems to be absolute nonsense from what you've just described it. So yes, I think there is a need to revise the formula that we use, and maybe that's another recommendation that we could add on to this paper today to task officers with going away and looking at the formula and coming back with a formula that actually reflects what we're doing and the amount of open space and flexible space there is in these schools.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's so important to get this right because, it has, subliminally or otherwise, it does influence the fact that their schools are at capacity. Sends a message in terms of planning. That kind of possible restrictions and development. So we've got to get it right. So that we want to get as many houses that we can that can boost the economic, local economy and keep that going and meet the need of people that want to move into the area and bring some to the area. It's got to be a kind of consideration anyway. So I think that would be helpful to include something like that in the recommendation. John?
Regarding that point, I thought we'd already discussed this some time back and we'd already agreed that that's what we should be doing. I can remember sitting, must have been a decade ago, at New Ferm or some school prior to the Chambers, when it was getting refurbished. And we were talking that the formula that we were using didn't seem to make any sense and have only bearing on our schools. I mean, I think if you look at the number of times that we've had to put additions onto the Dunlop Primary School, for example, that's just one case in point. But been happy to go forward with that, although I thought that's what we were already going to do. Just wanted a wee bit of clarity. It's great to see Kenmore schools are all A's or B's, but just to clarify the suitability overview, is that to do with internal suitability of the buildings? Thank you.
Just before, I remember, just in terms of the school forecasting, I think the planning department, the education department were using two different ways of estimating population. I think they've got that right now. I think there's just one council method of measuring the population growth, but I think in terms of the secondary school, that's still an issue that remains. And I think if we can do something about that. I see Andrew, you get your hand up.
Yeah, Chair, thanks. It was maybe just to close this out at the moment. I mean, I would agree a recommendation to review the secondary schools. Nationally, there was a review of primary schools a number of years ago, and it did agree through Scottish Futures Trust a standard method. We were anticipating that would then follow on with a secondary school review and get a national position. That hasn't happened, so I think it would make sense for us now to just kind of provide some clarity and review where we are from our own point of view. And again, as you've just said there, Leader, I think the excellent work that's happened over the last kind of couple of years, just bringing together the work that we're doing in terms of future projections as well, has really got us to a much stronger position. And this would probably just be the final piece in the jigsaw. Absolutely.
I think kind of got to factor in things like better use of outdoor space, that that we can do in terms of outdoor classrooms, etc. That a number of our schools are doing, and that can influence things as well. Jim, you've been very patient.
Thanks, Doug. Most of the stuff that I was going to talk about has been touched on. I think the condition and suitability overview, if it was a report card, it'd be very good, but I think there's still room for improvement there. Andrew has said we have delivered over the last 10 years. I think there's absolutely no doubt we have delivered. Just linking back to Linda's earlier paper and part of that management restructure, when she mentioned about the schools being at the heart of the community and the importance to that. none more so have I seen it in our ward than with the Barony campus, the new early years at Netherthird, and currently under construction Netherthird Primary School. The anticipation within the Netherthird community, you can almost feel the excitement when you talk to the folk there. So it's certainly delivering, and it's great to see the benefits that not only the kids are experiencing at the Barnet campus, but hopefully in the near future, then the whole community can experience all the benefits. We're sitting with facilities in there that the wider communities have not even seen yet. So hopefully as we move through this pandemic, everybody can experience what the kids are experiencing in Robert Burns Academy on the campus.
Absolutely, and I remember the old Netherthird primary, so some of the classrooms were some of the tightest, and I better not say too much, but they're one of the best, and it's good to see that we're getting the Netherthird community is getting a new school there.
I think Eileen's still to answer about suitability. Is it only indoor or outdoor?
Yeah, Aileen, in terms of suitability, is it only indoor or outdoor? I saw you nodding your head, but just for clarity.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just going to come back in there to Councillor McGee's point about suitability. So suitability surveys are completed by head teachers every 5 years, or if there's been significant extension or change within the school, or indeed a change of head teacher. But it really relates more to learning and teaching spaces, both internally and externally, but also social spaces and accessibility. So that's kind of what's covered within the suitability survey. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Neil.
Thanks, Dougie. I wasn't going to, but Aileen, could you just guide me on the low occupancy section? And I'm being parochial with Catherine Primary School, for example. What potentially could that mean when it's being monitored closely for the future? Does that mean, I'll let you tell me what it means.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McGee. I think just in terms of high occupancy, they tend to, when we have schools where there's high occupancy, it generally means that we need to do something about it and we need to put plans in place. In terms of those that have low occupancy, it's just keeping an eye on these on an annual basis. I mean, Catherine, for the likes of Catherine and Patna and some of the other schools that are in that, they're in rural locations, so there's really no risk of any issues going forward. I think what we would want to do, maybe at the moment, you'll know that the ECC is within Catherine Primary School, and they'll be going back to the refurbished building. But I think it's maybe going back to Linda's point about that place-based approach. It's about how we make more efficient and effective use of our buildings, so if there are these rural schools, which are, after all, at the heart of the community, there's no way that we want to rip that heart out of the community, but it's maybe about making better use of these buildings, going forward. So that's really as much as we're doing in terms of monitoring.
Just sorry to continue, but just in terms of loan head, just in terms of the last time it was measured was April 21. Is it too early to kind of see how the kind of impact that the new schools had? Is there any indications that capacity level's going up?
Thanks, Chair. That capacity level would be relating to loan head within Kirkstyle. So from the census of 2021, we'll have the most up-to-date figures. We'll get these for you. I mean, I can pass that on to you if you want, but it's just remembering that that was loan head within Kirkstyle that was reported within this actual SEMP report.
Okay, thanks, Aileen. No, certainly.
No, thanks, Aileen. That's the answer I was hoping for. I was getting a bit concerned that it was being monitored for other purposes, and just pleased to know that it's going to get the attention for the community in the future as the others. So thanks, great, Aileen, thanks.
Okay, thanks for this. Another excellent report there. Can we agree the recommendations? We have a recommendation on about the secondary capacities suggested. Okay, so, and Is that the last? No, one more item. It's the policy review schedule.
Amanda.
Thanks,
Amanda.
Chair. Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. The purpose of this report is to recommend to Cabinet the introduction of our work experience policy. The background in relation to the policy review schedule are laid out in paragraphs 3 through to 7. Over the page in paragraph 8 details that this new policy has been developed in consultation with managers across the council, including education and employability, and also our young persons cabinet. The aim of the policy is to provide a structured and coordinated approach into the way that the range of a person can undertake work experience within the council. Paragraph 11 lays out the key principles, including all services being encouraged to enable work experience placements where possible, the benefits to the young person in terms of helping them with their employability skills and giving them a taste of their careers for their future, the benefits to the council, identifying the skills and talent of potential future workforce, develop existing staff skills as well in terms of coaching and mentoring support. It demonstrates that the people of all abilities can take part in work experience with reasonable adjustments, and the policy supports the council's commitment to the promise. It also details the 3 routes to gain work experience and goes into the good quality work experience and how it should be planned, and include induction in the workplace and appropriate risk assessments. The work experience will be logged and reported back on a quarterly basis to People and Culture Service, and will tie in with the workforce planning information that's presented to Cabinet within East Ayrshire Performs. We'll also commit to carrying out feedback and evaluation surveys, and although noting in the last bullet point that work experience is unpaid, but however we've included a provision that should there be a requirement for the work experience candidate to receive an allowance for their lunch or travel, this would be managed on an individual basis through the services. Paragraphs 15 and 16 note the trade union have been involved in consultation through collective bargaining and have agreed with the content of the policy. There are no direct financial implications, risk implications or net zero implications. The recommendations are in paragraph 2, which is to approve the introduction of the work experience policy, and otherwise note the content of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Amanda. Any questions for Amanda? Claire?
That's great, thanks. Amanda, brilliant report. Really great to see that the Young People's Cabinet have been consulted yet again, them helping shape council services moving forward. As you know, I always say what we think young people need and what they tell us they need are often 2 very different things. So brilliant that you've consulted with them, and hopefully this is that moving forward. Amanda, just on the report, so the report states that experiences should be planned in advance, including the tasks that the young people will carry out, and also information on what a good work experience will look like. Can I ask what monitoring arrangements are in place throughout the work experience placements, just to ensure that we're giving the young people a meaningful work experience while they're there?
Through you, Chair. Yes, absolutely. Monitoring will be continued right throughout the experience to make sure that it is meaningful for the individual, but also for the council as well, so that it gets them on the right foot and for going forward.
Thanks. That's absolutely what we need. That's good to hear. Okay, anybody else, John?
On the basis, we're talking about how they get a meaningful work experience. How do we make sure they're getting a safe work experience?
Okay, thanks. Through you, Chair. So what we'll also be making, and it's in one of the bullet points at the bottom of page 76, that including the good quality experience being planned in advance. Also, there'll be an induction carried out, but any risk assessments that's required to make sure that that is a safe environment for them.
Right, no, sorry to sound like a broken record with all these things that come through, but I see there a bullet point 15 about the trade unions are actively involved with the review of the policies. I'd like to see trade union involvement with young folk when they get to a work placement. As a fact that trade union workplaces are safer workplaces, and I think that's something that we should be working towards, and I've brought this up many times. Thank you.
That's John, fair point. I mean, Amanda.
I think that's a reasonable point. We work very closely with our trade union colleagues, and for having them included, and they would welcome that as well. They're included with our apprenticeship framework, part of that board and everything. So just extending it there would be no issue at all.
That's good. Okay, we'll do that. Anybody else? Okay, can we go to recommendations? Can we agree recommendations? Thanks.
Claire.
Sorry. Claire, I didn't. Sorry, Claire.
It's okay. It was actually just in response to meaningful work experience. I was involved myself for 15 years taking on children for work experience, and what John was saying about the health and safety, I had to go through a health and safety checklist, and the children had diaries that needed filled in continuously. But more than that, I expanded on that because I didn't think there was enough in it. I thought very much a tick box exercise, and that was the message coming back from colleagues or fellow pupils from these children. So I'm glad to see this is getting another look at, because there was too many children just went out to offices and shuffled papers for a week. So, and one of my children went to Vibrant Communities for her work experience, and it transformed her. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, no one else. Claire, your hand's still up. Okay, can we agree with the recommendations? Okay. That's the end of the E items, folks. And now, Eric. Continuation of contractual arrangements, local health and care services. Eric, can you see? Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everyone. This report is on continuing contracts and locality health and care services. A report was presented to the IJB last Wednesday, 9th February, requesting extension of contracts in locality health and care. That report was approved, and in line with legislative provisions and East Ayrshire Council standing orders, the IJB is seeking implementation through East Ayrshire Council via Cabinet today. Refer Cabinet members to paragraph 6 in the report. The three contracts here relate to two Helping Hands projects. Firstly, the assisted shopping service, and secondly, the preventative handy person service. The report also relates thirdly to the care at home framework, and the total value in here is circa 2.82 million. There's a description of these services at Appendix 1 to the main report, and that's pages 83 in the packet reports. And members will see the Helping Hands shopping service delivered in Kilmarnock. It's used by around about 30 people. Similarly, members can note that the low-level maintenance service is used by over 600 people. Commissioning actions in relation to these two projects are to put in place negotiated contracts for a 2-year period, with the option to extend for 2 further 1-year terms. Wish to highlight to Cabinet the expansion of the handy person maintenance service, and that now covers the whole of East Ayrshire. Helping Hands will cover all our communities being made available as part of this extension. Note at para 10 the marginal cost increase in doing this and the value that that represents to vulnerable residents. Moving on to the care at home framework, this covers 3 providers, Constance, Mayors and Rainbow. Members will note that First Home Care is no longer on the framework, and its commissioned work was absorbed by the in-house service. This is all in the context of our agreed best value service review, and in that context and the agreed improvement action plan, I just want to note the shift in the external-internal balance of care that we've seen over the year in line with that best value service review. So if we compare 2 periods, period 8 of both years, 2021 of the 68,500 hours, 80% were delivered in-house, and that compares to the previous period 8, 2020-21, where it was 75%. The Commission action in relation to care at home framework is to use the second of 3 extension periods available to complete the implementation of the best value review in a planned and sustainable manner with the pressures of the more severe impacts we've had of the pandemic. Commission actions are in line with those set out in Appendix 1 from April 2022 to extend care at home framework for 1 single year, and again from April 2022 moving forward with Helping Hands to seek that negotiated contract for 2 years with an option of 1+1 extension. Paragraph 7 in the report locates all of this work within the context of the IJB strategic plan. The implications are there detailed through paras 9 to 16. Contracts are important in terms of support and inclusion of vulnerable people. Note at paragraph 12 the reference to the annual adult social care workforce uplift, indicating compliance with the Fair Work agenda and value in social care. Note also the link to the IGB risk appetite statement, in particular around about quality of service and openness to prevention and early intervention. Also, in terms of transformation, the flexibility shown by Helping Hands in extending the handy person service across all communities. Recommendations are at paragraph 3 and are to approve continued funding, receive the direction from the IJB to that effect, and otherwise note. Happy to take any questions or observations, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. It's good to see some of these good work that some of these voluntary organisations and other organisations are doing to extend it right across East Ayrshire, and it's only right that the whole of East Ayrshire benefits from that. That's good to see, Harry. I don't know if anyone's got any comments. Okay, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, and I'll move exclusion of press and public.